What was your greatest moment of revenge? Story 1. When I was 11 years old, I was bullied by a 12-year-old boy. He would steal things from my lunch every day. I got sick of it and decided to do something about it. One day, I brought a super hot pepper in my lunch and pretended to be really excited about it. Sure enough, the boy came over, snatched it from my hand, and popped it into his mouth. He practically exploded in pain, writhing on the floor, unable to handle the heat. I calmly looked at him and told him that drinking a nice glass of cold water would help immensely. He did so. This promptly magnified the pain 100-fold. He never stole food from me again. I regret nothing. Story 2. Driving to drop someone off, my radar detector went off. I saw a cop sitting in a parking lot. After dropping off my friend and heading back, some jerk started tailgating me. The speed limit was 40. I was doing 45, and he was so close I couldn't even see his headlights. We approached a traffic circle, and he tried to pass me on the right. I sped up, and he kept trying. We hit about 80 to 90 with him driving on the shoulder. As we came up over the crest of a hill, I knew the cop was right on the other side. I hit the brakes, and he flew over the hill. Had to be doing 90 in a 40. I even stopped to let the cop pull out of the parking lot. Most satisfying thing ever. Story 3. My first real boyfriend. We kissed instead of just holding hands. Kissed another girl and dumped me for her when I was a freshman in high school. She had actively pursued him even though she knew he had a girlfriend, so I blamed her rather than him. I know. Fast forward 4 years. I was a volleyball player throughout college. In the off-season, I played in a city women's league and a co-ed league as an outside hitter. My team played against a new team with a familiar face. She didn't recognize me. We went to different high schools, but I immediately recognized her. My team's setter kept giving me amazing sets, and I kept slamming the ball over the net, just waiting for my shot. Finally, she was in the back row and my setter set me up. I hit the ball, and the boyfriend stealer stepped into the hit. It bounced off her foot, went straight up into her face, and broke her nose. Story 4. This may seem small, but it was the most satisfying thing I've ever done. When I was in 7th grade, I sat behind a jerk who hated me and loved being annoying. Every single goddamn day, he would lean back in his chair and hit the front of my desk, over and over again. If I was trying to write something, he'd do it even harder. One day, I decided enough was enough. In the middle of a lesson, he started again. So I waited, and right as he leaned his chair back fast, trying to slam into my desk, I pulled it back. Without my desk behind him, his chair tipped right over and he hit the ground hard. I can still clearly remember him whispering, "You bitch," beneath the laughter of the whole class and the teacher yelling at him to get up. The look on his face was a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and pure rage as he looked up at me from the floor. Bastard never messed with me again. Story 5. A shady repair shop in Moab, Utah messed up our car, leaving us stranded in a nearby national park. We called and demanded they tow the vehicle in, and while they said they'd come get us, they never did. When we spoke with park rangers, they were quite familiar with the shop, the biggest in town, and with a terrible reputation. We were on our honeymoon and had more time on our hands than most travelers probably do. So we went to the shop, demanded a full refund, and when they refused, we set up camp out front. We brought our camp chairs and homemade protest signs and sat on the curb for 2 full days. I was overwhelmed by the support we got from locals. People honked, waved, stopped to chat, and shared their own horror stories. The owner called the cops on us, but the joke was on him. We had already notified the police of our protest, and we were fully within our rights. In the end, the shop owner refunded all our money and looked visibly distressed when we told him that even with the refund, we weren't sure we were ready to leave town. Eventually we did, but not before filing complaints with the Better Business Bureau and every review site we could find. They had already been kicked out of the Chamber of Commerce. We ended up becoming friends with an awesome local mechanic and walked away with a great story. Justice was served, and without a tinge of guilt. Story 6. When I used to be a cheerleader, we were organizing a trip to Florida from the UK for some training and an awesome holiday. I took charge of booking the flights and asked everyone if they were okay with paying me back if I bought all the tickets together. Yeah, I know, bad idea. Needless to say, one girl backed out because she was starting a new job, and just before we were due to go, I got a handwritten note in the mail from her mother. We were in our 20s, saying she had never agreed to me booking a flight on her behalf, and that she wasn't liable to pay me since she had decided not to go. I panicked a bit because I didn't have her home address, and she ignored all my calls and emails. I wanted to take her to court, but in order to do that, I needed her address to serve the papers. After spending ages asking around, trying to get her friends to give it to me, with no luck, I stayed up all night figuring out a way to find out where she lived. It literally took me all night, but I managed to hack into her Hotmail account, and then her PayPal, which led me to her home address. I could have just taken the money from her account, but I wanted to do this as by the book as possible. She showed up in court with her mother and tried to use Facebook photos to prove I had used her ticket to take someone else in her place. I came armed with a printed copy of the airline's terms, which clearly stated the tickets were non-transferable. Judgment was swift. Victory was mine. Story 7. Okay, I have 2 older brothers. The eldest is a good person. The middle one is a monster. He's a meth-addled felon who has tormented my family for over 20 years, and I've taken the brunt of it as the only one willing to openly challenge him. He's stolen my mother's wedding rings, my grandmother's car, my TV, just to name a few things. Despite everything, my family decided to try letting him back into their lives again, and I followed suit. It's Christmas 2013, the best holiday celebration I could have imagined. Everything is going well. Then the middle brother walks in 2 days after the celebrations just to collect presents. Strike 1. He drops a bag of drugs as he walks in. Strike 2. Then he criticizes our eldest brother's home renovations and tells our grandmother she wasted her money. Strike 3. Later, we're in the car, heading back into town to save someone a trip. He asks me for my passport. I say, no, I can't do that. He spins this ridiculous story that I used to borrow his ID to get into clubs as a teenager. Lies. I never did and never would. He says he needs it to get into a party. He's 300 pounds, 35 years old, and there's no way he's getting carded. He shifts into his usual tactic, yelling and getting louder, more aggressive. I tell him it's illegal and that if he gets caught, it'll be very bad for him. There's a line between asking for something and demanding it. He crosses it. My heart starts racing like it used to when I was a kid, when he and his friends would follow me and mine just to beat the crap out of us. I remember the time he pulled me out of a lake when I nearly drowned. But that version of him is gone. The brother I loved is gone, and a total stranger is sitting behind me, demanding the symbol of my liberty. Strike fucking 4. I tell him if he brings up my passport one more time, I'll steer the car into a snowbank and beat him within an inch of his life. Then I hear it. Give me your passport, in a voice I don't recognize, from a face I no longer know. My heart floods with blood and adrenaline like never before. I pull into a parking lot, get out, and wait. Calm, patient. I wait for that fucking asshole to work up the courage to step out and face me. He does. Yells something I don't hear. I tell him he's got one chance to get back in the car and never speak of my passport again. He grins and says passport, like it's a game, like I'm still that scared little boy who adored him and wanted to be just like him. I throw the fastest, hardest punch I've ever landed in my life, straight into his chin. Blood shoots from his mouth as I land the second hit. He manages to strike me twice, above and below my right eye, but I lose all control and unleash on the left side of his face until it's a broken, bloody mess. If you're reading this, middle brother, fuck you. Story 8. I used to go to a public high school where the majority of students were low to middle-class kids of Italian immigrant origin, 90% plus. Tough environment, to say the least. Back then, I was regularly bullied by a guy named Ronaldo. Over the years, we had a few scraps, some verbal, some physical. I was always the type of guy who wouldn't take crap from anyone, and while most people stopped messing with me, especially after I hit puberty and became one of the tallest, biggest guys in school, Ronaldo somehow always found a way to give me a hard time. It was a rough experience, but in a way, it toughened me up early on. I had a stern father who taught me that if someone punches you, you punch back harder, and that's how you find out what kind of man you're dealing with. As luck would have it, Ronaldo ended up going to the same college as me, and, surprise, he continued being a little shit. What made it worse was that we both fell for the same girl, Andrea. She eventually became my girlfriend for over 4 years. Everyone knew he had feelings for her, and it drove him crazy that she chose me over him. He kept trying to seduce her with random calls and emails, flaunting his fancy lifestyle, nice cars, lots of money, courtesy of his wealthy father who owned a construction company. Meanwhile, I came from a low-income family that struggled to make ends meet, and I had to earn everything I had. He was a constant problem during the first year of my relationship with Andrea, and we had several conflicts. Years later, after college and shortly after Andrea and I broke up, I received an email from him out of the blue. We had no contact. Facebook didn't exist yet, and he sent this long, ridiculous rant filled with profanity, poor grammar, and insults. No wonder he never finished college and dropped out to work with Daddy. The gist of it was, no one liked you in college, so F off. I hadn't seen him in over 2 years, and we didn't have any mutual friends anymore. I didn't respond to his emails. He sent several, partly to keep my cool and partly because I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing he got to me. But I couldn't let him walk away without consequences. So, I did a little digging. I Googled his name, and sure enough, I found a full professional profile, where he worked, what kind of business it was, everything. Turns out, his father had passed away and he now ran the company, managing a team of employees. I sat on the info for a few weeks while I planned. Then one day, I walked into a local sex shop and bought the biggest, fattest, floppiest black dildo I could find, along with some KY. I went home, wrote a personalized note, packed it all in a standard shipping box that couldn't be traced back to me, and sent it priority mail, signature required. The note read, "Since you have so much time to track down people who never gave a shit about you to begin with, I figured you'd have enough time to go fuck yourself with this." A few days later, one of our old acquaintances emailed me. He'd been working for Ronaldo as an intern and told me the package arrived just before a team lunch on a Friday. Ronaldo was excited. He thought it was something he'd ordered online and said it would make it a good weekend. He opened the box in front of several coworkers, and instead of whatever he was expecting, out comes a giant, floppy black dildo. Priceless. Story 9. I was living in a Middle Eastern country a few years back. Nice place. But since about 50% of the population in the region is under the age of 20, the roads are absolutely overrun by teenage and early 20s douchebags. The culture's fatalism makes young guys even more reckless and irresponsible than they're already programmed to be by their hormones. One day, after a rare rain shower, the highway ahead was flooded, about 18 inches deep. Traffic was backed up for at least a mile, and it took us 15 minutes just to reach the flooded section. Everyone was pissed. Then I saw 2 cars full of teenage douchebags zooming past everyone on the shoulder from way behind me. Motherfucker. There's just no excuse for that kind of horseshit. Eventually, they reached my spot in the line and passed me just as we approached the 50-yard stretch where the flooding crossed the road. And wouldn't you know it, one of them moved into the far left lane, the other stayed in the far right, both clearly trying to avoid the deepest water in the middle lane. And wouldn't you know it, their windows were rolled down. I was in a Toyota Land Cruiser, nice, big 4WD. So while they were crawling through a foot of water in their little action hero Hondas, I thought, screw it. I gunned it straight through the deep middle lane between them. The wave from my front wheels must have been at least 6 feet high. I had to have sent 20 gallons of nasty urban stormwater straight through their open windows. Completely. Fucking. Drenched. All of them. With grimy, disgusting runoff water. Of course, they chased after me once they made it through the flood, screaming and cursing, but I just pretended to be on my phone and ignored them. Eventually, they gave up, probably assuming I was just as impatient and selfish as they were and had accidentally hosed them in the process. Most satisfying revenge of my life. Story 10. I'm a professor. Many years ago, I had a small group of students in one course who I strongly suspected were cheating. Scattered bits of evidence suggested they had prior access to my test content. I don't allow students to keep their test copies, and I rewrite my exams every semester, so it was puzzling. I concluded the most likely method was during the photocopying process, so I decided to test that theory. As the next test approached, I intentionally left the previous semester's version of the exam in the photocopy room as bait. Then I rewrote the new version entirely, except for page 1, which I left the same to avoid raising suspicions on test day. I printed the real test using a different department's copier on the morning of the exam. Sure enough, when I graded the tests, all of the suspected cheaters got perfect scores on page 1, but bombed the rest of the exam to varying degrees. These were students who had scored A's on the first 2 tests and suddenly dropped to D's and F's. That pattern alone might not have been enough for an airtight academic integrity charge, But when I called one of them in to confront her with the test copies, she broke and gave up the entire group. Turns out they had access to my department's copy room thanks to a former student worker, and they had been sneaking in after hours to steal exams from the to-be-copied pile. In the end, it caused a major disciplinary storm. F grades, multiple suspensions, and even one expulsion, which is extremely rare, given how hesitant universities usually are to kick students out. The cheaters were hoisted by their own petard, and I earned what passes for professorly street cred among my colleagues for catching a well-organized cheating ring that many others had missed. Story 11. Years ago, I was living in an apartment in Johannesburg. The building was mostly occupied by elderly folks and a few young working couples like my wife and me, people who generally went to bed early. After 10 p.m., the place was dead quiet, practically a morgue. Then a couple of guys moved into the unit below us. Total party types who would whoop it up until dawn. If anyone dared to complain, they'd get threatening fast. One of the guys' dads owned the apartment, so they had zero fear of being kicked out. One night, around midnight, they were outside in the street getting ready to go clubbing. Yelling, talking loud, girls screeching, total chaos. Eventually they drove off, but I was furious. Still, being an original 90-pound wimp, I felt powerless. Then I remembered the tube of superglue in my desk drawer. I went down to their flat, which had a serious security gate with a heavy-duty bolt lock. I stuck the glue nozzle into the lock and squeezed every last drop into it. A couple hours later, lying in bed, I heard the party hardies return. Same routine as before, tons of noise as they spilled out of their cars and headed toward the apartment. Then silence. Later, I found out they ended up breaking a toilet window to get back in. The girlfriends, of course, wanted no part of that and took off, as did the rest of their friends. The next day, they had to call a locksmith who used a blowtorch to cut the lock out of the steel casing, which also damaged the front door. So both the security gate and the door had to be replaced, along with the bathroom window they'd broken. Since the guys didn't have the money to cover any of it, the dad who owned the place had to pay for everything. He was so pissed off, he kicked out one of the roommates. From that point on, it became the quietest flat in the building. Story 12. I was in the Navy, attending basic enlisted submarine school, and living in shared barracks. I had two roommates who, for lack of a better term, sucked. They were filthy, never cleaned, smelled awful all the time, and, on top of that, they never woke up on time for anything. Because of them, we failed room inspections week after week, and it was starting to get us in serious trouble. Eventually, I got so fed up that I decided to exact some revenge, mainly to prove to the inspectors that I wasn't the problem. Every few days, we'd have duty assignments. One weeknight, I had duty and waited for the exact moment I'd be serving as a roving watchstander in the barracks to pull off my little operation. Before my watch, I pissed in a Ziploc bag and placed it in a friend's freezer. By the time I needed it, I had a perfect sheet of frozen piss. About an hour before inspection, knowing full well my useless roommates wouldn't be up, I slid the sheet of piss ice under our door and into the middle of the room. Why didn't I just use my key to enter? Because I didn't want to risk waking either of them during my covert mission. Sure enough, when the inspectors came around, I conveniently forgot to wake up my roommates like I did everyone else on the floor. The inspectors started banging on the door. Inside, my two roommates were scrambling to get dressed and completely disoriented, slipping and shuffling right through the puddle as the ice melted. Absolute chaos. Then came the moment of truth. The inspector opens the door, sees the mess, smells it, and the realization hits. That look on his face when he realized it was piss? Pure gold. He completely lost it. The two of them got chewed out and hit with a bunch of consequences. And since I was on official duty at the time, I was cleared of all punishment. For the first time, the inspectors finally realized the problem had never been me. It was those two dirtbags all along. I don't feel guilty at all. Never did. Never will. Story 13. I've done this more than once, but here's the most recent story. I was coming back from a road trip with a few friends when, holy shit, we found out Pretty Lights was playing on the way home. I immediately bought the cheapest tickets available, which came in a pack of 4. They cost $40 each, but the face value was $55. 2 went to my friends, and with the show starting in just 2 hours, I posted the extra one on Craigslist for $60. Didn't take long. Someone texted me, agreed to meet in front of the venue, and said they'd buy the ticket. We met. I handed it over, and it was kind of my fault for not checking, but he shorted me $20. I was furious. I mean, what kind of asshole rips off the guy who hooks you up with a last-minute front row ticket? But hey, I had his phone number. So now, every major holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, I wait. I like to imagine he's with friends or family, having a great time. That's when I post an ad on Craigslist in highly populated cities like San Francisco, New York, Detroit, etc., under the Casual Encounters section, M4M. Something along the lines of, by curious twink looking to suck first cock. Then I write a convincing little blurb and finish it off with, send your cock pics to 123-456-7890, and I'll pick the sexiest one. I wait a day, then take the ad down, because, after all, I am merciful. Story 14. This isn't as clever or devious as some of the stories on here, but it still holds the #1 spot as my most satisfying moment of revenge. I was 13, reclining on a beach chair, when this boy about my age and his younger friend, who I'd known for about a week, kept messing with my chair from behind. I asked them to stop multiple times, but of course, they didn't. They were classic bratty, redneck kids. The younger one even had a rat-tail mullet, which becomes relevant later. The whole time I'd known them, they wouldn't stop talking about how the boys could do this or that, but the girls couldn't because we were girls. Constant sexist crap. The last time they messed with my chair, I stood up, spun around, and stared the older one dead in the eyes. I told him he'd better knock it off. He just looked at me with a smirk and said, "What are you going to do about it?" The second he finished that sentence, I punched him square in the eye, then grabbed the younger kid's rat-tail mullet and yanked it so hard he fell to the ground. Then I calmly sat back down in my chair. They both started crying almost immediately and never messed with me again. 8 years later, and it's still the best feeling of revenge I've ever had. Story 15. Very petty, but a major victory for me. Back in elementary school, 1st through 7th grade where I live, I was bullied by this girl. I was tiny, red hair, braces, glasses, low self-esteem, the perfect target. She was just fat and entitled. She gave me multiple concussions, knocked some teeth loose, and left a few emotional scars along the way. It got so bad that I secretly applied to a secondary school in another district just to get away from her. My parents were definitely surprised when they got the admission letter, but that's another story. Fast forward. I ended up getting accepted into one of the more prestigious public high schools in my area. For context, this is in Norway. I'm not sure how that system works elsewhere. One day near the end of my second year, I ran into her. She had gained a lot of weight and was walking home with 4 giant takeout bags in her hands, heading back to her parents' place. Meanwhile, I was out jogging, living on my own, and honestly feeling the best I ever had. I was at my skinniest, most confident, and felt genuinely beautiful that day. And my revenge? I was nice to her. She had failed everything and had only managed to get into the lowest tier high school. I was thriving in the highest priority one. She was struggling. I was not. I smiled. I asked how she was doing. I was kind. I was compassionate. All those years she bullied me, and all I felt was pity. That was my revenge, and it felt amazing. Story 16. Neighbor of mine, Brian, was a total asshole. I was 2 years older than him, and he acted half his age. He pissed on our deck, threw rocks at my dogs and friends, and was a terrible influence on my younger brother. The kid was a walking problem, probably seeking some kind of escape from his addict mom who used to beat him and her other kids. Real chaotic, messed up situation. Anyway, it's my sister's 18th birthday. She and her friends are hanging out in the living room. Brian's in the basement, pestering me, fully aware I can't stand him. I'm just trying to chill and play N64. He keeps smacking me on the back of the head. I warn him, if he does it again, I'm gonna hit him back. Apparently, that was an invitation. He grabs a plastic bat and smacks me in the back of the head with it. Game over, Brian. I snatch the bat from him, grab him by the throat, and absolutely beat the shit out of him. His face starts bleeding, and after I toss the bat aside, I go to work on his torso, punch after punch, then throw him to the ground and stomp on his hands and arms. Eventually, I pause to catch my breath. Brian bolts up the stairs, crying and bleeding, and runs home. I go back to playing N64. My mom sees him. My sister and her friends see him. My brother, who saw the whole thing, is bawling. My mom's boss, who later became my first boss, sees this bloody mess of a kid sprinting out of our house. My mom comes downstairs and asks me what happened. I look her dead in the eye and say, I hit him. I hit him and didn't stop until I couldn't hit him anymore. She tells me to wait in the basement. I do. Whatever. Worth it. Then Brian tells his mom, this absolute train wreck of a woman, that my sister and her friends ganged up on him and slammed him into a coffee table. So fat slut, as she came to be known, shows up to our front door in just panties, a tank top, and a baby on her hip, screaming that she's gonna beat someone's ass. My mom tells her to get off our property, but she won't budge. 3 18-year-old guys tell her to leave. My mom's boss tells her to leave. Then my dad walks in from work and says, get the fuck away from my family. She demands to know who beat up Brian. I walk straight up to her and say, I did. And I'll do it again if he ever steps foot in this house again. And after that, I'll kick your ass. She storms off to go beat Brian for lying to her. I won, earned the respect of my sister's friends, proved to Brian that I wasn't someone to mess with, and made a lasting impression on my future boss. Got grounded for 4 days. Brian and his messed up family moved away shortly after. Brian, if you're reading this, I dare you to talk to me in person. I'll fucking blind you. Story 17. In 4th grade gym class, I discovered heartbreak, revenge, and victory, all in a single period. Just moments before class started, my boyfriend dumped me because I was too weird. I sat there in disbelief and sadness while he ran around like nothing had happened. Naturally, we ended up on opposite teams, which only deepened the dramatic little chasm between us. Now, I've never been good at sports, wiffle ball included, but I stepped up to the orange rubber plate, the bat heavy and awkward in my hands. My ex was pitching. He smirked and called out to the outfield, don't worry about this one, she can't hit anything. I was embarrassed. I was heartbroken, but mostly I was pissed. I said nothing, just stared him down as he casually wound up his pitch. His eyes sparkled with smugness as the ball left his hand, flying toward me. I swung, with every ounce of my tiny, furious strength. Whack! The wiffle ball connected with my bat, and then it connected directly with the ex's balls. Dead center. He dropped like a rock, curled into a wailing heap on the gym floor. My team erupted in cheers. I ran the bases like a champion, greeted by high fives as I crossed home plate. It was beautiful. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share a similar story or anything you'd like to say in the comments. See you next time.